I approve of myself. I accept myself for who I am. I love myself for who I am, all of the good, the bad, and the ugly. Then I don't have to do that. I don't have to reach out for permission and approval. So this is a big difference in the shift of creating this life. So just to recap it quickly, be who you are, be willing to take a risk, don't live in a binary world of success and failure, become a scientist who works in a lab, and just know that each step of the way, that's the journey.
Hello to the wonderful explorers of life's rich tapestry. Welcome to another enriching episode of Age of Reinvention, the podcast that equips you with practical strategies, insights, and inspiration to navigate the ever exciting journey of personal and professional transformation. Whether you are a seasoned leader looking for the new company direction, business idea, or just changing your lifestyle at midlife, this podcast is designed to help you thrive in an ever-changing world. Today's chat is poised to stir those inner whispers of change and ambition. In today's conversation, we are diving deep with remarkable Dan Silberberg, a luminary in the field of leadership and personal discovery. With a career spanning over 40 years, Dan has led and inspired numerous C-level executives, teams, and individual professionals. His work with Intellect AI, it's the name of Dan's company, a transformative platform, has earned him a reputation for guiding individuals through successful reinventions. Through the wise words of Aristotle, reimagined for the modern age, Dan crafts journeys of becoming that redefines the essence of personal success and continued growth. So get ready to embark on a journey through ancient wisdom, emotional intelligence, and the tangible steps to unveil your inner genius. This is a conversation I was looking forward for a long time, and we will have it together, and it's one you will not want to miss. Short Dan's bio. A seasoned professional with over 40 years of experience, Dan Silberberg is a visionary thought leader who combines business expertise with a profound commitment to personal transformation and leadership development. Dan has a master's degree in leadership and coaching and plenty of years of personal growth and development work. Having extensively studied the great thinkers, Dan has been involved in personal growth and development for the past 40 years and worked with more than 20,000 participants. Well-versed in social emotional intelligence, the psychologist, transformational educational principles, humanism, existential principles, and neuroscience, he is committed to finding the inner side of genius in each of us. Hello, Dan. I'm happy to see you and speak to you today.
Hi, Emily. It's great to be with you and always enjoy our conversations. So thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Pleasure is mine. And over the last days, I was reviewing your book. And one phrase I would like to start with. The privilege of lifetime is to become who you truly are. I took these words from your book, From Myth to Meaning, Awakening the Leader Within. This book devoted to the leaders as per title and as per description, and you're helping them in developing the authentic leadership skills. In my podcast conversations, we are speaking more about the personal development and reinvention in midlife. We are all different personality types, desires, and have different desires and professional experience. And by the way, not everyone wish to be leader in the company and develop a corporate career, but each of us definitely need to lead our own unique life. What you can tell in this regard, in what areas of our life we still need to be leaders, in your opinion?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I'm going to frame it in a couple of different ways. One of the reasons that people like film, like Star Wars, like Harry Potter, like the Tolkien trilogy, right? Like The Hobbit, these are all based on Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey. And when I work with leaders, I'm not interested in just talking to you about being a leader in business. I'm talking about how do you express who you truly are, that you take the genius, the gift, and the artistry that you're in this world and this time right now, and how do you architect then a spectacular life? We tend to think of leaders in business, but we're subject to leaders in politics. We're subject to leaders in our spiritual principles if we belong to any organization, right? And here's the really interesting thing. If you're in a meeting, and I don't care if it's business, a family, whatever, ask the participant who is the leader. Invariably, the answer is whoever has the highest title. Maybe in the family, it's dad or mom, depending who the most aggressive might be or who is the one who sets the boundary. But here's the secret. Everyone is leading all the time. And the only question is, to what? So if we look at in a business and you've been in a meeting, so Emily, you talk and I come in right after you every time and validate what you say. So maybe I'm the sycophant. There are other people who just sit in the back of the room and you can tell from their body language they're not buying into the agenda. Then you have people who come out after the meeting going, there's no way this is going to work. Then you have people in the meeting saying, oh my gosh, this is going to be fabulous. And when they get out, over time, they'll go around and become the saboteur. So in your own family, we play roles. We have the first child, we have the middle child, we have the baby. So you're in your 40s, mom invites everybody for Christmas, no one wants to show up. And when they get there, they're all acting like the roles they were in their teenage years, which is why they all don't want to be there. So for each of us to become who we truly are, there is a principle called individuation. So in other words, how do I become who I truly am? And yet I want to fit in. I want to be likable. I want to be accepted. And our deepest fear in human beings is I'm afraid I'll be abandoned. Or you hear people talk about, I don't want to die alone. So what happens then is we start out from 0 to 10, and that's what I call the default paradigm. So 0 to 10, you have no analytic filter. So whatever family tells you their beliefs are, they become yours. Whatever early education puts into you, it becomes yours. Whatever spiritual principles, they become yours. Whatever culture norms, they become yours. Whatever political and institutional norms. If mom says, we vote Democrat, dad says, nope, we vote Republican, maybe you're conflicted, but chances are, so all of these things, it's like a computer hard drive. So whatever you load into it, it sits there until you do upgrades. It sits there until you get rid of viruses. And so one of the things that happens in our education is we bleed out this genius gift and artistry because we want you to be compliant and you want to fit in. So as we look at building this spectacular life and leading a life that we love, we work on how many of these beliefs can I really be aware of? And to the extent I bring it into the present moment, I now have a choice. That belief works for me. You know what? That belief doesn't work for me. So I'll give you a quick example. You grow up in a house, there's scarcity. I want the Nikes. Dan, we can't afford those Nikes, so we're just going to have to go with what we have. God gave us what we're supposed to have. People with money are bad. People with money aren't honest. People with money are angry. People with money take advantage of other people. People with money are narcissists. Now, Emily, I want you to go out, be highly successful, and make a lot of money. That's not possible. It's just not. You have a belief in your subconscious that will draw to you more scarcity. But when you're aware of those beliefs aren't really mine, grandpa and grandma grew up in the Depression. I can understand why they might have that mentality, but I live in a world of abundance. Money flows easily to me. I bring great gifts to other people and they pay me handsomely because it's of value. Both of those beliefs are just beliefs, and whichever one you choose will make a difference to the life you have. So if you want to reinvent, and I've done this not only in my own personal life, but I've done this in business over and over. So I've had, in the 40 years, I've probably worked in 7 different industries. I worked in multiple channels of distribution. I worked in multiple geographies globally. I have a technology background. I have a business consulting background. I have a CEO background. All of these experiences are ways of reinvention, right? So we can talk a little bit about as we come to retirement, or we decide we want a different way of life, then we can start to peel back that onion.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. And actually, I fully tune to what you are saying. And now, just to continue a little bit, let's speak about your roots, your upbringing, and if you can please share with us the story of your personal rediscovery, maybe from the personal side. You mentioned your business experience and expertise, and at what age period the most important reinventions or transformations happened to you, and what you learned from them?
Sure. So actually, we probably all have multiple ones. So let's start when I'm 12. I grew up in the Midwest I grew up in 1950. So in the 50s, it was a much different world than we find today. It was after World War II. It was a period of growth. It was Ozzie and Harriet and Jennifer Reed and my 3 sons. And there wasn't all the craziness that we have in the world today. But when I was 12 years old, I was in the 6th grade, and we were on our own paths, and I didn't realize it, but I had finished the entire year of reading, math, everything that needed to be done in less than 1 semester. So the principal called my parents and said, "This kid has something. Don't send him to public school. Put him in a college prep environment." So that's the first time that I had a chance. My brothers were I had 3 brothers. They were all in public school. I'm in the 10th grade. My brother's in the 12th grade, and we're reading the same material. Yeah. And that really, I think, instilled in me this intellectual curiosity. It was just stunning, all the different things that I found fascinating. So that's one place where there's an inflection point. Another inflection point is I went to school in the South, and I ended up in a university where there were kids who told me I had never met a Jewish person before. I was receiving anti-Semitic phone calls in the dormitory. So the reinvention here was to own more of my identity. It was to build a resilience. It was not to cower, but actually be more in the world. And then it became, I can be in the world, but I don't have to be of it. So I don't have to play to that kind of, and then we look at what's going on in the world today, and 50 years later, I can't believe I'm seeing this, the seeds of this growing yet again.
So am I. In America, especially, because I'm coming from the different world and probably naively or I thought that what is happening now, I'm speaking about anti-Semitism all over the world. It's in the past of last century. And what you would say now, so you were good prepared from the childhood.
Yeah. I was taken to business meetings. My dad was a national sales manager, and I would fly with him on TWA when there were propeller planes, not jets. And I'd go to business meetings, and I'd go to the factories on Saturdays and sit in the chair and pretend I was the CEO. And as one of my professors said, dude, you were born for leadership. You were bred to it. And my schooling, don't worry about being a great man, be a great boy. So values, principles, right? Strategies, ways of behavior, how to make good choices. All of these were instilled early. Then I got into business and people saw my talent and doors opened for me and opportunities were created that, as I look back now, is what gave me the opportunity to have a spectacular life, right? There were others who wanted to develop younger people, others who could see talent and wanted to make sure that it got expressed. And not everybody has those opportunities, but we all have an opportunity to express our deepest truth.
These days, we all face disruptions, uncertainty, and ambiguity, especially during the midlife transition. It might and will affect people. How does your coaching style approach these unknown unknowns and prepare people for such events?
Sure. It's a long story, but let's do it this way. So, when we as human beings decide that we want to do something, it's outside the comfort zone, right? It's easy to sit in our comfort zone, complain, bitch, do all kinds of things, blame others, right? But that's our comfort zone. But when we're willing to risk outside of our comfort zone, then all possibility opens up. The thing that holds us back the most is the emotion of fear. Okay. So, what I work with people on is one of the questions would be, what would your life look like if the expectation and judgments of others didn't matter at all? Mom says I should be a doctor. This one says I have to do this. You should, you must, you have to. No, I don't have to do any. That's your issue. That is not my issue. So part of it is to set the context of, am I willing to take a risk? And if I'm not being judged, then I've got a lot of room to play in. The other thing is, if I'm being judged and I make mistakes, then we have a binary choice. We have success or failure. Since I don't want to be in failure, why would I take too much risk? Because I can be okay where I am. So let's make the shift. So I don't work in a binary world of success and failure. I work with people to say, here is your new role. I want you to think of yourself as a scientist. And I go, what? But I'm not a scientist. I got it. But do you go to the movies? Do you ever see anybody play a character? So let's use our incredible imagination, put on a white lab coat, and pretend you're a scientist. Where do scientists work? Scientists work in a lab. Yeah? And what is it that scientists do? They exactly. And so we all know Thomas Edison 10,000 times and he finally got a light bulb. So is he a failure 999 times or 9,999 times? No. What he said was, as a scientist, there's a thesis. I think there's electricity. There's an antithesis. That didn't work. But I learned something. Now I have a new thesis. So it is an iterative process. And as you mentioned, I know a lot about the great thinkers, and they're all my heroes. So Buckminster Fuller said, the more mistakes I make, the smarter I get. So as a scientist working in a lab, I can experiment. This is the biggest opening to building a life that you want. And you don't have to worry about, and I would say also, one of the things that people say on their deathbeds, I wish I had been more myself. You don't need to wait to die to do that. You can wake up today and so you want to lose weight, yeah? And what happens? All your girlfriends say, Emily, you're fine. You're not heavy. You really don't need to do that. You're just perfect. And so what are they saying? What they're saying is that you will become someone different. And then the question is, if you're hanging out with really heavy women, they're like, if she gets really thin and looks like Gwyneth Paltrow, she's not going to want to hang out with us. This is a subconscious. In some cases, it is conscious, right? And this is why building a shield, if I want your advice, I'll ask for it. But I don't need you to tell me I don't need to lose weight. That's my decision. But what happens is sometimes we tell all our friends this. Why? We want approval. We want permission. See, I approve of myself. I accept myself for who I am. I love myself for who I am. All of the good, the bad, and the ugly. Then I don't have to do that. I don't have to reach out for permission and approval. So this is a big difference in the shift of creating this life. So just to recap it quickly, be who you are, be willing to take a risk, don't live in a binary world of success and failure, become a scientist who works in a lab, and just know that each step of the way, that's the journey. That's really what we're here for. The outcome will come. It might be a good one, it might not be such a good one, but you know what? If it's not the one you wanted, then you have an opportunity to shift. And in doing this process, it's iterative. You don't go from 1 to 100 without 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and on. Yeah. So if we allow ourselves that and we give ourselves that permission, we can actually be in joy on the journey.
So now, Dan, I understand clearer. And you once mentioned that your clients end up usually with more clarified vision personally and professionally. How do you approach helping someone individually clarify their vision and why it's so important?
So in business, if you don't have a compelling vision, if you don't have something bigger than yourself, then you're going to have a group of people that aren't very engaged in helping you get to the outcome, right? So with Steve Jobs and Apple, he wanted to change the world. That vision that he had, the crazy ones, right? To bring things that had never been done before. There are a lot of people that want to go on that journey. If I just want to, Emily, I'd like you to come to work because my whole goal is just to make a lot of money. I'll pay you a little bit of it, but my real goal is for me and my family to splurge and have our toys and buy real estate and do everything for ourselves. Now, that's not always stated, but in a lot of small businesses, that's what's not stated, right? So having this vision is to start to work with people, maybe use some comparisons and say, here's 10 visions, rate them on a scale of 1 to 10. This one's really compelling. I wouldn't do this one for anything. So one of the visions is I want to set up a biotech company, and my goal is to get as close to curing cancer as we can. My vision is that people will live a longer life, they'll have a higher quality of life, right? They'll be less of a burden to their family, and all of that. That's a company I probably want to work for. So when you start to think of vision, replace the word inspire. So what would inspire you to give 100%? So I trained in 1982 with Werner Erhard. Werner was the founder of the Est movement, and now it's Landmark. And he created a thing to end world hunger. That's a big idea, right? Or I want to be able look at all the initiatives going on in Africa to build schools to help the young people there get educated, the healthcare issues, how to get rid of diseases where vaccines can be given, and that sort of thing. So people get inspired when there's something more than just me. And that's what I help to clarify. So you're the CEO of a company or you're a parent. Let's go with the parent. What is it you want for your children? Do you have any idea what you want, or they're just on their own and you'll guide them occasionally and that kind of thing? For my kids, I wanted them to have spectacular lives. Part of that was you need to contribute in the community from early ages. We did different walks for charity. We did different school functions to bring better lives. We had a high school where we brought in kids from the inner city who wouldn't have had the experience of working in the best school in the state, with 100% of them graduating and going on to college. And yet in the inner city schools, kids were absent, kids didn't graduate, a lot of them didn't go to college, and it really changed lives. So we've all seen those inspiring things that touch us, give us chills, goosebumps. So that's what we work on. What are your values? What are your principles? What strategies and behaviors are you going to put forward? And now that you know what those are, let's go and talk to your people and do the same. And now, are we aligned or are we going this way? So when we hear today, for example, that 80% of people are not engaged in their work, that's the misalignment of values, principles, strategies, behaviors, and choices. So how often do parents say, we're going to dinner tonight and we're going to go to the pizza place again because we do that every Friday? Or the parent says, Johnny, it's Friday, it's your turn. Where are we going to dinner? Yeah? How inspired is Johnny to think all week about it's going to be my turn on Friday? Yeah? So if we're in a business and we're telling people, I want you to go from A to B, here's the strategy. I want you to go from here to get this result. Oh, by the way, now I'm going to tell you every step of the way what to do. Do you think you have an empowered person who's inspired to do the work? No. So the map of here to here is not the territory, which are all the little things that need to be done in order to get there.
Yes, it's very visual, and there are still a lot of things to be done in this regard. And I understand we are living in a time of big changes in personal relationship. And actually, one of my questions, everyone knows people who, after spending years developing careers themselves as a leader and being on the leadership position for years, after some time feel the internal doom and emptiness, and sometimes on the verge of crushing own family, relationship with a social circle due to the lack of free time and energy to be engaged with family. So what happened in such cases, in your opinion?
That's a self-inflicted wound. Yeah?
Yeah.
So we hear that it's lonely at the top. If you're sitting behind bulletproof glass with a bodyguard, it probably is, right? But what happens if you're overwhelmed with everything coming at you, why aren't you delegating? Why aren't you giving others? Why aren't you training others? Why aren't you getting it off your plate? Right? So when I look at that sort of a thing, that top down command and control, do as you're told, says, I have to have all the answers. I have to tell people what to do. That's not leading, that's managing. If I can create the grand vision, the only thing I should be doing is what only I can do. If I'm doing things that someone else can do, I should be delegating and then following up. So if your calendar is such that you have a meeting every 20 minutes, that's your calendar. You need to block time for daydreaming and thinking so that the creativity shows up. You can't be creative when you're in that kind of an abyss. So again, it's really how you approach. We've taught people, we claim that people are leaders, but really what they are is managers. So what's the underlying issue? It's trust. If I don't trust you, then I'm going to micromanage you. I'm going to create a more toxic culture. I'm going to more tell you what to do. When things go wrong, I'm going to tend to blame you more, right? I'm probably going to take credit when it's not mine. I might use language because of my own anger because I'm not comfortable in my own emotion. So this is this social emotional intelligence. Yeah. So I hired all these people for their genius, and then I institutionalized them in our company culture. And what was I hoping for? Yeah. So when we look at the institutional culture, that determines how people behave. Dan, I want you to make all your own decisions. Then I come in and tell you how to do everything. Okay, which one is it? The system. So whatever that business model is, that's the system. How we make decisions, that's the system. How we incent and reward people, that's the system. If you want to change the culture, change the system, and the people will absolutely change without any resistance. We do it backward.
Thank you. Thank you. And it's very valuable to everyone, not only managers, to hear it again and think what we can change in our company, in our family, in our relationship with other people. And next question. I know that your coaching approach developed by your company is deeply rooted in Aristotle's concept of intellect. Please explain a little bit about it and how do you practically apply this ancient philosophy in your modern training and coaching, sparking our curiosity and inspiring us with its relevance?
So, Intellect is a word from Aristotle. And in its simplest form, when he was speaking about it, he was talking about form to function. So what he meant was that an acorn becomes an oak tree. A caterpillar becomes a butterfly. Neither the acorn nor the caterpillar realizes within that form that it has that its function is to emerge into the beauty of the oak tree, but it's embedded, encoded in it. What I'm saying with the entelechy of a human being, if you can imagine, use your imagination, you all know that you have DNA within you. It's encoded in you. Yeah? So is your entelechy. It's encoded in you. You can resist it. You can avoid it. You can sabotage it. You can't eliminate it. And so in working with executives and other people, like you ask me, tell me about your story. Tell me and answer the question, who am I? Answer the question, where do I live in bad faith? In other words, Where do I blame others and not accept responsibility of my own action? And tell me your relationship to spirituality. When I hear all of that, it's not what you've said, it's all of my reading in between the lines of what you didn't say. In your story, I told you about being noticed at 12. I told you how that ignited my intellectual curiosity, right? And so I'm sitting in my coursework, and at one point, I don't know how we got to it, but anyway, they were talking about me and they said, "We've never met anybody who can read as much information that's pretty dense. You can connect all the dots, synthesize it, and explain it back to us. We're in the sixth grade. We've never met anybody like that." Okay, they didn't realize it, but that was helping me to understand one of my gifts. When I work with people, that's my skill in working with 20,000 plus people. I see it. I can walk in a room, I can look at people, and I can tell them already what their gifts are. I've never said a word to them. I can sense it. And so I think we all have that ability. So I'll put it another way. Human beings are the only thing where existence, our birth, precedes our essence. So a stone, its essence is preceded before it comes into the world. A desk can only be a desk. An oak tree cannot be a car, but a human being can emerge moment by moment by moment to become the next best version of themselves. So what keeps us from becoming that and having that spectacular life are culture norms. Don't put your head above everybody else. Everybody should be on an even plane, right? When we go to school, make sure that you color within the lines. God forbid that you would color outside the line, or that you wouldn't even use the particular picture that's there. You'd create your own. And we all have these stories of, my daughter drew this picture. I had no idea what it was. When I asked her, she said, "Oh, that's God, Dad." "No, honey, then you've got to do it this way, all that. So the entelechy is that which we are here to express. With our DNA, all of us have the DNA of Cancer. It expresses in some and not in others. We all have this entelechy that sits within us. Spiritually, I believe that we all came here for lessons to be learned and to have our journey, right? Our life journey. So are we willing to step into it, or are we willing to hide and stay in the background? So that's how I work with people. So, for example, you'll have a leader and he says, "Dan, I don't really like confronting people. I don't like being confronted. It's difficult for me to have honest conversations." So that would be something to work on with a leader. Well, if you're not willing to do that, then the result is that you probably have a pretty toxic culture. If your team comes in and says, "Here's an issue, and the only way it's yours to step in and help us resolve." And if you say, "I'm not comfortable doing that, I'm not going to, no, we're just going to leave it the way it is," you've lost credibility. You build resentment. It makes it less likely I'm going to come to you with my problems and tell truth. The culture is more toxic. So all of those kinds. So what we'll work on then is role playing until there's enough comfort. And then if there's a person who the CEO is really willing to take the risk with, we'll bring that person in and role play until there's, "Oh, you know what? I actually can do this. People admire me for telling the truth. People are more excited to bring me the things that I need to know. I'm more approachable. I'm more trustworthy." These are the kinds of things that we work on.
The invention in midlife sometimes might be slowed down at facing our shadows, not only fears, shadows. Could you discuss the strategies you and doors for confronting and overcoming the fears or insecurities that might hinder stepping in our fullest personal potential. What should we do? How you approach it?
Yeah, so I think that there's a strategy of if you have a swimming pool, you have the shallow end and you have the deep end. You have a diving board that's 3 feet and you have a diving board that's 15 feet. Maybe we're not day one going to start at a 15-foot diving board into the deep end. And we may just start putting a toe in the water and go, oh, that worked. That's going to give me some confidence. I'll do the next step. And other people are more willing to take a risk and dive. One of the things I got trained on is what is your deepest yearning? I want to be seen. I want to be known. I want to matter. I want to contribute. I want to make a difference. I want to be loved. I want to love. So we start to look at what are your deepest yearnings? And then as we start to look at that, then we would go, and I've got some new insights now. If I want to be seen and I'm hiding in the corner, then this is going to start to say to me, I might want to actually try to get out of the corner and I'm going to move 3 feet. And I've got this revelation that, oh, you know what? I can try that because that's not too risky. And as I try those things and I start to see that I'm successful, I liberate myself to try more. I'm in a situation, whether a family or a business, I don't ask for things. People don't want to help me. I'm alone and on my own. So, Emily, your goal for the next week, everybody you meet is to ask for something. Not $1 million, but Emily, I'm running late and I'm going to miss my flight. Could you call Uber for me and arrange a ride? Emily, I'm running late on my assignment. Is there any chance you could give me 30 minutes? I'm downstairs. My hands are full. Emily, would you mind opening the door so I can get the hell out of here? It's these little things that are repetitive that reinforce, wait a minute, I can ask for help. Actually, 90% of the time, people say yes. So now that I'm liberating in my thinking, I'm actually changing the neuroplasticity of my belief system. So now if I'm rejiggering that and I dedicate to keep doing this, I can build this spectacular life. I just have to identify what are these. It's not so much the shadows. The shadow is more the parts of me I don't like about myself. The fears are, like I said, no one wants to help me. I'm alone and on my own. Unless I do it myself, it won't get done right. So you continue to keep doing that, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And with our cognitive biases, we look for evidence to prove ourselves right. Yeah? So that's how I would work with clients is on this evaluating process to our own entelechy.
Life challenges can be our greatest teachers. And we have a lot of challenges around us. How do you suggest we learn from the experience of failure or criticism to emerge more resilient and insightful?
Okay, this is cool. So criticism. So when I was in my master's program, so I grew up in a house where deceit, obfuscation, blaming others, avoiding any kind of responsible for a bad outcome. I had a PhD in how that would work. I could change the goalposts. I can argue everything to my advantage. And the professor said, you know what? I just can't do this with you anymore. So here's your assignment. Your assignment is I'm going to have professors and students for a year. See, most people would get this, Dan, in a week, but with you, it's going to take a year. So for the next year, you are going to hear all kinds of opinions of people, what they really think about you. You are not allowed to defend anything. Your job is to get to the kernel of truth. No matter what they're telling you, there will be a kernel of truth in there. This will help you to understand how people project onto you so that you don't need to defend and take it personally. And then you need to get to the humor of the criticism. Now, I'm a really quick study, okay? Without being arrogant, I'm a quick study. 7 months into this, I'm not laughing at anything they're saying. And one day the switch went on and everything became funny. And the wall that I had built to protect myself, to be perfect, to not allowed to make mistakes, to all that, all those bricks started coming down. Not in a day, but over time, those walls fell. When I look at a client, I want to talk about what wall have you built? Is the wall to keep you inside, or is the wall to keep other people from getting inside? So there are people out there looking for love, but they don't believe they're lovable. So they build a wall. So when people try to love them, they go, see, I told you I wasn't lovable. And the flip of that is I have no boundaries. So in other words, whenever you criticize me, I would have to come after you and I would have to be in your face until I actually thought that you could find me acceptable. And both sides of that are not helpful. Again, this idea of who am I and am I happy to be who I really am? My job isn't to convince you to like me. My job is to be me, and there will be people who are attracted to that, and there will be people who are repelled by it, and both are okay. So that's how I deal with that idea.
Interesting. It's a lot to unpack. And I believe people will have additional questions or need time to digest all this. What would you advise people considering or in process of midlife reinvention? Like to find their inner genius, this voice which might be covered for the years of disappointment or fears, and what conditions and steps can ensure that this process will bring desired results.
It's hard all by yourself. So what I would say is to find a coach or someone who's skilled at helping you to unpeel the flower so you can blossom and bloom. It does no one any good to live in the past. It's over, it's done. It can't be changed. And so a lot of that work is this self-acceptance and moving beyond those past things. I tried this once and it didn't work. I'm a failure, therefore I'm not going to do it again. I don't know. If you look at the best sports people, they had a lot of failure before they became Michael Jordan, right? They had a lot of failure before they became Tom Brady. So when you look at sports athletes or you look at actors or you look at other people, we tend to think that these people have everything they touch is golden. And most of them, they're an overnight success after working at it 20 years. So if you're in the midlife and now you want to have a different life, it's really an inquiry. It's hard to do on your own. So it helps to work with someone else. A lot of people go to work and go, I have to do it for the money so I can take care of my family. Okay. So if we could wipe that clean with an eraser, let's just start to imagine if money weren't the issue, if judgment wasn't an issue, if criticism wasn't an issue, we have a whiteboard here and everything is possible. Okay, now what? I love music. I love gardening. I love politics. I love blah, 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 whatever. Great. Let's just keep writing all of those kinds of things down. Now, if I pursued this, what's my vision for it? What's the outcome I desire? Right. And as we go through it, now we'll start to prioritize. And you know what? Maybe I'm going to do two things. Maybe I'm going to be a woodworker because I really love making furniture, right? If I need money, then maybe I'm going to work part-time. Maybe I'm going to volunteer. Maybe I always thought about teaching English in a foreign country. Maybe I thought about, I really have this background. I'd love to put a course together for other people. It and we'll get this definite. It's not, oh, that's what I wanted to do. It's taken me probably 3 to 5 years. Let's see, I got my master's degree 8 years ago. I've been doing different things, but this idea of building this leader consultancy and doing what I'm now talking to you about emerged in the last 3 years. And I give myself permission that it took all that time, but it's what I enjoy doing and it's what I'm committed to now. And again, I think the whole idea is you can't solve it in your head. You solve it doing it. So get engaged and give yourself permission to learn and make mistakes and just get smarter. And look at the smile on your, when I said, and get smarter, your whole face changed, right?
Because you lighten up. I'm looking at you and I feel the energy coming from you. And even for people who would only listen to audio track of our conversation because it's podcasting, I can tell you that you look younger, I don't know, 30, 40 years when you speak about things that I know important to you. And now, how people looking for invention or looking for advice can find you, how to reach you?
The best way to get to me probably is on LinkedIn. So if you go to LinkedIn, and I don't see that you have my name up there spelled, but it's Dan, and the last name is Silberberg. So S like Sam, I-L, B like boy, E-R, another B, E-R-G.
It will be included below our conversation. Yes.
Oh, and then my email is Dan at Intellechy, ENTELECHY.AI. And both of those would be ways that we could connect and see what might help.
So you're available for the personal consultation as well as a team coaching, correct?
I do one-on-one coaching. It's not the biggest part of my business. It's hard for me to scale that. So I tend to work more in masterminds. But I think what could be interesting is if I got a lot of people interested, I have put together 13-week groups. And so I have a way of doing that. And quite honestly, in a lot of cases, it's more advantageous working in a group because if, let's say I did a course thing with 25 people, you have an issue, I'm working with you on the issue, but everybody's doing their work in a way of how it relates to them. And then sometimes in the group, we'll say, if you have a question, let's get the group to give you counsel. So actually, in certain ways, putting a group together is a better way of leveraging lots of different opportunities and voices.
Because there is group dynamic and group energy and people are learning from others. Telling the truth, I prefer to work in small groups as well, personally. So thank you very much, Dan. I really appreciate your time and advice. And I believe it will be maybe first, but not the last meeting at our Age of Reinvention, because there are so many aspects of our life that would need help for different people to reinvent themselves in business, in personal life. When people are relocating, it's a big step. And I believe you might have your personal experience in this direction as well. So to our listeners, I can say that our time with inspiring Dan Silberberg ends. My heart is full, and I hope yours is too. Today's conversation about leadership, personal growth, and the magic of unlocking one's true potential with Dan has been enlightening, to say the least. I'm very happy. But we all learned about the importance of embracing change, the power of curiosity and courage, and the value of staying true to our unique path. Big thank you to Dan for sharing his wisdom, experiences, and the vision that drives personal and professional reinvention in midlife. It's conversation like that reminds us of the power within to create and thrive, no matter the stage of life or career we find ourselves in. To all our listeners, remember, whatever your dreams or aspiration may be, know that you can turn them into your reality. Keep pushing boundaries, seeking growth, and most importantly, staying true to your unique path. Thank you. If today's episode has sparked something inside you, or if you are on your own journey of reinvention and craving a community that gets in, we are here. Reach out, share your story, or simply tune in for more tales of transformation. Until next time, keep exploring, keep dreaming, and keep reinventing. This is the Age of Reinvention signing off. Remember, the best time to start anew is now. Take care, friends.